My mom and I are invited to an Indian wedding, but we don't have anything Indian to wear. Therefore, I decided I'm going to sew our dresses. For my mom, we bought a half-sewn Lehenga Choli, which basically means she bought a skirt which is already sewn, but the side seam is completely open. And the blouse, the choli, I really hope I'm actually pronouncing this correctly, and sorry if I don't, is just a piece of fabric which has rhinestones glued to it, and it's like this cookie cutter thing. So if you're interested in how I sewed this into a fitting blouse and how the dress turned out at the end, watch this video. Also, if you're interested in more sewing videos from my channel, hit the subscribe button and the bell, and also drop a comment. I'm interested in hearing how you find this video. Let's get started! So what you will want to do for the blouse as a first step is to take measurements. Of course, I'm sewing this for my mom, but I'm going to show you how to take the measurements on myself. So the first measurement we need is around the bust at its widest point. So this looks like this. And the second measurement we need is below the bust. So that we can actually make a well-fitting blouse. In fact, I also needed a third measurement, the waist. So this is what a half-sewn choli looks like. I had no idea what to expect, but I find it super cool. First, I measured the blouse from one armpit to the other, leaving away the seam allowances. I also measured the backside of the choli. I did the same at the waist and below the bust, and compared the measurements to my mom's. The blouse should fit well with enough allowance to move. As I've mentioned before, I have no experience with cholis. Therefore, I'm very slowly inching my way forward towards the end result. I added plenty of allowances along the seams, armholes and neckline, and then roughly cut it out. At this point, this piece of fabric just might be the prettiest poncho ever. At this point, I really wanted my mom to put on the poncho so that I could pin her into it and then slowly see what it starts to look like when I take away the seam allowances. This helped me get an idea of how the blouse would look like in the end and what fit the makers of the fabric had in mind when they designed it. This was also a very helpful step for my mom, so she could see how low the neckline was at this point and if she really wanted the blouse to be cut off at the waist as it was intended. I'm happy with the result. I'd say I'm very slowly getting there. After the fitting, I'm cutting off some seam allowances at the armholes, and I'm also cutting through the seam at the front of the fabric, which is called a princess seam. Seems like a very fitting name for this gorgeous garment. I cut away the seam allowances that are more than 1 centimeter. As I've seen in the fitting, that it's not necessary to leave more. My mom decided that she wants the blouse to end at the waist. Therefore, I can cut away the excess fabric below the bedazzled hemline. It's time to sew the seams and darts. I'm making sure to not sew over the glitter. I'm using a zipper foot because the glitter comes very close to the seams and it's not possible to sew with glitter underneath a presser foot. The zipper foot uses less space and only presses down the fabric of the seam allowances. It's starting to look like the gorgeous blouse I know that it's going to be. Time to cut off more seam allowances. After sewing the darts and seams, my mom has to put it on again. Now I can see that I still have plenty of seam allowances that I can cut away. I'm cutting through the fabric at the shoulder to create a front and a back piece. Because of this beautiful neck and hemline, I'm not using any sort of lining for the front of the blouse, as I would have to make it small enough to hide it and then fix it in the shoulders and side seams. This seems a bit redundant to me. I'm cutting the excess fabric away from the neckline and making the backline a bit bigger. And by folding the blouse in the middle, I can check that it's symmetrical. I thought long and hard about the different options of how to finish the back neckline of the blouse. And now I decided I want to go with a lining to turn the neckline. It would have been easier to cut the lining before I sewed the darts. Oh well, it's too late now, and I don't want to open the darts again. So I'll just work around it. I copy the darts onto the lining, sew them and also hem the lining. I turn the back neckline by stitching the two fabrics with the right sides on top of each other, cutting into the fabrics where the neckline curves, and then turning it inside out. Next I overlock the lining and the outside fabric along the edges. I measure the front armhole and the back armhole, excluding the seam allowances. Now I can sew the shoulder and the right side seam. The left side seam gets an invisible zipper. All the glitter that's in the way of the seam, I just scrape it off. In the end, I'll glue them back on to where some other stones fell off. I prepare the sleeve by cutting away the excess fabric below the hem. I dug around in my sleeve pattern stock and found one that has approximately the measurements of the blouse. It's very important that the sleeve measurements are a bit bigger than the measured length of the armholes. This allowance is necessary that one can move more freely when wearing the blouse. For the second sleeve, I flipped the pattern. If I didn't do that, I would end up with two sleeves for the left arm. A classic mistake that probably every sewer makes at the beginning. For the sleeves, I'm also cutting a lining. I'm doing this so that my mom has the lining on her skin instead of this interfacing that they apply to the fabric in order to be able to stick on the glitter. It actually serves no other purpose. So I do not have enough fabric on this sleeve for the sleeve to be bigger than the armhole. So I'm just adding a little piece of fabric right at the seam to give some extra width to the armhole. Because otherwise my mom could probably not move when wearing the blouse, which wouldn't be much fun for a wedding, right? Now that I've altered the sleeve, it is time to sew it into the armhole. The only thing that's missing now is a rope to tie the back of the blouse together. This I've come to realize helps greatly with the fit of the blouse, because otherwise it would just fall off the shoulders with time. I didn't actually film the making of the skirt because I didn't do major alterations. I guess the biggest one was taking out what we lovingly dubbed the beehive. It's this very stiff interfacing that they sewed onto the bottom of the skirt to make it flare out more. Yes, it looked good from the outside. To try it on, my mom just put the skirt around her waist and tried walking with it. And it actually really hurt her legs, so we decided the beehive has to go. And apart from that, I also shortened the skirt because it was too long, which was quite a bit of work because I had to shorten it at the waist, because I couldn't just cut off the glittery part at the bottom. Then I closed the side seam, but I didn't even bother putting in a zipper because my mom can easily put it on without it. I pulled a cord through the tunnel in order to be able to tie it around the waist, and added some pretty pearls. And that was it. So may I present to you the finished Lehenga Choli that I sewed for my mom. I am so excited about it. I think it's such a pretty dress. And honestly, sewing it was such a great pleasure for me because I felt like I was creating this stunning Disney princess dress. I mean, when do you ever get the chance to sew something this beautiful? I'm so excited to see my mom wearing it. I hope you enjoyed watching my lehenga sewing journey. Don't forget to drop a comment and let me know what you think of this video. Let me know if you have any questions. Also, don't forget to subscribe, because my next Indian wedding outfit video, my sari-inspired dress, will be uploaded soon. Thanks for watching!